Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Owoh's Corner, my own little corner of art. And in today's stream, it's just going to be a chill stream while I work on my animation and I also go over a movie I watched. So, the Book of Clarence hit Netflix a few days ago, and I just loved the movie. Like, it was amazing, it was awesome, it had me in tears at some point. A very beautiful, very wonderful movie. I just I just loved it. And it really tugged at the heartstrings because it goes over like doubt and loss of faith and the struggles that any believer, any reader of the holy book and God's message goes through. And it definitely harkens onto the work that I seek to do with my animation. So the book of Clarence, it follows a black man, an ancient Israelite, who lived in, I believe it was Lower Jerusalem during the time in which Jesus lived. And so it follows a man named Clarence who is trying to make ends meet. So he's a bit of a trickster, a bit of a, I'm trying to find the proper word. He sells illicit substances, and he essentially fell in love with a man named Jebediah's sister. But he ended up owing him 30 gold or 30 shillings, which is like an old type of currency. And after many twists and turns, first he goes to John the Baptist to see if he can get baptized. Now, he is not a religious person at all. He doesn't really believe in the Messiah or God, the God of the Hebrews. So he goes to John the Baptist to see if he can get baptized so that, in Jebediah seeing him get baptized, maybe he'll be a bit lenient on his punishment of what he owes. And he gets he gets baptized, but reluctantly. And then after that, he also has the bright idea of, after much, contemplation, he wants to become a one of the apostles. He wants to become the 13th apostle. And he goes over to the house where the apostles are, and he essentially gets laughed out. And that's where we meet not Jacob, Clarence's twin brother, who is one of the apostles. And so that is where Clarence really has his struggle with faith, because he essentially sees, like, so basically his twin brother left home in order to follow Jesus, and he essentially left their mother when, like, their mother and father were on their dying beds. He Clarence's twin brother left their family to follow after Jesus. Ooh. And speak of that, my own mother is calling me. I'll be right back. Yeah, that was just my mom calling me. You see, that's the amazing thing. Like, I'm talking about moms, and then my own mom calls me. She's doing fine, by the way. She's doing a lot better. Like, she's recovering nicely, everything, whole nine yards. She asked me what I was going to eat for dinner tomorrow. I mean, I have leftovers for tonight. And I'll probably take a mini break from the stream just to turn the oven on. Because I'll probably have a quiche for lunch. Probably sit outside, eat a quiche. That'd be pretty nice. So anyway, I was watching the Book of Clarence. Oh yeah, I just remembered about that. I was watching the Book of Clarence, and it is such a good. It's such a good movie because it goes through the Christian experience of like doubt and despair and coming to faith and then striving to be better because the crux of the drama really starts with Clarence's issues and difficulties with his brother. Like things didn't really escalate to the point it did until really the root of his issues came from his relationship with his brother, it being damaged with the death of their father and the decline of their mother. And so it was by extension that to where even then Clarence still did not expose his brother to the other wise men. It was only until they sort of tried to force him or pressure him to do certain acts in order to get into the good graces of the group, that was when things really started to escalate. Because Clarence did have a reputation about him. Clarence was known as sort of like the group or like the village rascallion where he did things that he wasn't supposed to do, where he was known to be a very I wouldn't say corrupt, but just he brought trouble wherever he went, and that was sort of his reputation at that point. So the other disciples didn't really want him in their group. They didn't even allow him to see Jesus, which I do believe that if he had met Jesus earlier on, then a lot of the difficulties and issues he had in the past would have been non issues. Because Jesus probably would have gotten to him and talked to him about what he was going through. But then in that same vein, it's like Jesus knew what was happening all along, so he likely allowed it to happen in order to strengthen his faith. And so that's another thing. It's like Clarence's twin brother. Let me actually look up his twin brother's name so that I don't keep saying Clarence's twin. Cause I feel like I know his name, but I don't want to say it. Thomas. Yes, Thomas. That's his name. So Thomas rejected Clarence from joining the group, and because Thomas couldn't be bothered to take care of their mother and their father, but he could be bothered to join the disciples and be a follower of Jesus. That is the crux of Clarence's loss in faith and his animosity towards Christian, well, not necessarily Christianity, but following Jesus through his brother. Like, that's the crux of his rejection. Like, why would God allow me to bear the weight of this alone? Why would God allow me to take care of my mother? Why would God allow me to watch my father die and my brother does nothing while he just goes gallivanting off with a man calling himself the Messiah? Like, that's the whole focal point of it. So then when he wants to become the 13th disciple, he goes over to the group and they say like, nah, you got to go over to this guy and free all the slaves. And so he goes over to this gladiator pit with all these slaves and he's like, hey, I've come to free these slaves in the name of Jesus, in the name of the Messiah. And then he's like, and then the gladiator in charge, he says, okay, like, I'll let you, they'll all be free, but you have to defeat Barabbas the Immortal, who is like this big, tall, beefy black dude, really cool. Like, he said that he was immortal and his only weakness is a cut to his heel. And so, like, he was just taking blow after blow. And through ingenuity, Clarence was able to defeat Barabbas. And the gladiator went back on his deal and he said, no, you can have Barabbas, but I'm not freeing all my slaves. So Clarence goes back to the apostles with Barabbas and he said, hey, I freed one slave. And then they're like, no, like, even if you try to your best, we're still not letting you into our group. And it's a satire. Like, the whole crux of the Book of Clarence is that it is religious satire, and it's interesting because it takes itself seriously, but then in certain instances it doesn't, because it sort of takes a almost modern spin on biblical times where folks went through struggle, folks went through doubt, and it's like, yeah, the Bible doesn't say that the apostles kicked folks out the group, or the apostles were like trying to gatekeep the Messiah or anything. Like, Jesus went where he wanted to. Like, he had the power to do so. But you as an audience member can kind of see, like, yeah, like maybe something like that didn't exactly happen, maybe something like that wasn't written in books, but it's not that far of a suspension of disbelief that something similar probably didn't happen. Like, I'm pretty sure the apostles did do some stuff like that. Like some of the books probably either missed details that weren't really added. Like, you can give that educated guess, I guess. And it just shows how really anything can spark your loss in faith, and how you can try your best, but like there is discernment. Like, there is discernment on you where people can read your nature and see if you're being genuine or not. I'll be right back. And so, as the movie goes on, it's really that hurt and pain that spurs Clarence to keep going down his path despite his own doubt. And you see a quarter of the way through his speaking and through his sermons where he does have doubt. He does have regrets. It's like, why did I do this? I'm just like, yeah, I'm making money. Yeah, I'm finally able to do this, do that. Like, have enough money to pay people off, take care of my mom even. But still, it's like, this isn't fulfilling me. And so sometimes, that's another thing, is sometimes God will give you what you want, or God will allow you to do things that even you didn't think thoroughly through, just to teach you a lesson. Like, there are stories upon stories of artists and actors and singers who have the world, but they still feel unfulfilled, or they're always getting into some sort of trouble. And so, about halfway through his sermon, Clarence comes to his senses. And so he essentially stops his sermon. All the money that he's earned, he goes back to the gladiator, and he gives them like thousands of shillings, and the and he frees the slaves. And so after that, he then goes to a party. And it's at this point where we see Judas. Judas is just selling out messiahs left and right. Like, hey, there's this guy named Clarence. He calls himself the new messiah. Yada, yada, yada. He'll be at this party. Clarence goes to this party. He dances with Jebediah's sister. And, like, they're having fun. They're having a nice time. And then Jebediah's sister leaves. So Clarence follows after her. And that's where he is surrounded by Romans, and he is taken to jail. And so his court date is the next day, where he has to plead his case. And that is when Clarence comes clean. He's like, hey, I'm no messiah. I'm just a peddler. I peddle in narcotics. Like, this was just a dumb idea I had to call myself a messiah. Another messiah, so then I can just make money, do XYZ, XYZ. And, like, that's a very humble moment for him. And so then the people don't believe him, and they keep calling him the Messiah despite him telling the truth, finally coming clean. So then the head Roman guard, he says, okay, here's a test. If you can walk on water, if your God is so real, then walk on water. If you drown and die, then you're not the Messiah. If you walk on water, then I'll kill you. And so, what really stood out to me is that the captain called their god fake. And so that was when it had like a camera pan up to the clouds, and the clouds came over the sun and like parted the clouds, and the sun's light shone through. And so that was when Clarence, who was a non believer, who didn't believe anything, like, he started to walk on the water, and instead of drown, because he said multiple times, like, he doesn't like water, he doesn't even know how to swim, he'll drown. He starts walking on the water. And, like, Clarence, his mind is broken. Like, and you actually see the shift, and that's why the actor who played Clarence, James Daniels, like, he had that disbelief. It's like, oh my god, I'm actually walking on water. And then he gets sad, because it's like now all the guards are trying to go into the water to grab him and take him out the water, and they start falling in the water and drowning. And like, even the guard captain, he goes to touch the water and his hand sinks, and he's like, I wouldn't have let you drown, I would have saved you, but now I have to kill you. And in that night over, it's like Clarence prays for the first time. He's like, God, why did you save me? He visits his lover, Jebediah's sister, visits him. And they have like a talk, they have a get together. And then that was when his brother also talks to him, and he's like, you know, I love you, brother. Like, even in the end, Clarence still could not forgive his brother. He just said, I love you. And so, a lot of parallels to Jesus' crucifixion. Like, he gets whipped, he gets beaten, he is crucified, hung on the cross, and then he is stabbed. Much mourning, much sorrow. Oh, and like before this even happened, I know I'm like dancing around the place. Before that even happened, like the general even came to Clarence and said like, "Hey, I'll let you go. Hand over Jesus." Clarence was like, "No, I'm not handing over Jesus. Like that man's incredible. I'd rather die." Gets crucified. He's just hanging there, and then one of the Roman guards, finally stabs him with a spear and ends his life. And then that is when we have the outro, where it's the actual Jesus, and he's talking to Judas, and it's like this beautiful rendition of the Final Supper. It's like, the one who will turn me in is the man whose prayer beads are dipping in Mary Magdalene's gravy. And that's when everyone sort of like goes ham on Judas, and like there's this beautiful time stop where before anyone can even hurt Judas, it's like Jesus stops time and forces him to eat the bread and drink the wine. So like his sins have been forgiven and cleansed, but he's still gonna go through with it regardless. And it's like, in that 30 days, I mean, not in that 30 days, in that 3 days before Jesus himself is crucified, he actually visits Clarence's tomb. And like, there's this beautiful thing where Jesus raises his hand and the rock crumbles, and he goes over to Clarence's grave, and like, he washes his hands over Clarence, and Clarence comes back to life. Like, his wounds heal, and that's where the story ends. But we can assume that Clarence either went back to his love, Jebediah's wife, or he still perpetuated the good word of the Lord, being saved by him. And like I said, especially towards the end, I cried because it's such a powerful movie. Like, it really shows the depth of the faith and coming to terms with oneself, and the doubts that we experience, and that wanting to do better and wanting to be better and striving for it, or falling back on it and still standing up and trying again and again and again until we make it. And it's a beautiful movie. It's a beautiful movie. I'm definitely gonna share it with my family, because what's been lost actually is that believers have forgotten about parable. Believers have forgotten about parable. They've forgotten about storytelling. They've forgotten about analogy. Like, it's like, it feels to me like faith has been lost. It feels like people are trying to constrain God to specifics when his light and love can radiate throughout all things, even media. Like, when the Book of Clarence came out, people hated it. Like, people said that it was blasphemous, that it insults God, that so on and so forth. And yes, we need to revere God, but do people really truly believe that God does not bring joy? That if we are truly hurting, that God can't make us laugh, that God is not willing to lighten our spirits? That's the thing with a high creator and an all creator, is that because they are omnipotent and omnipresent, they know what needs to be said and done in the moment. So personally, I believe that God is not above making us laugh or making us smile if it were to help us in the moment. So we should all be willing to not necessarily take things with a grain of salt, but definitely to take a chance and take a leap of faith, because the world is just going to get darker and darker. Things are going to get harder and harder, and we need to keep hope alive. We need to keep people going through doubt, through despair, through struggle. Because if we don't, then how can we survive? How can we thrive? How can we keep going until we do reach salvation? Until we do reach that hope, that light at the end of the tunnel. And that's why I love stories so much. I love stories. I love lore. I love world building, because it is through that parable, it is through that symbolism, that exposure of the human condition, and that want and desire for safety and a savior, in which I revere God and I love him and I worship him even more. So, really, much of my art can be equated to wanting to show people and wanting to expose to people that there is a chance, there is a life and a light, that faith can be shared, and that we can show people the beauty and majesty of God. And it doesn't have to be relegated to the Bible, but it can be shown through all things, through even our everyday actions and choices. We can still choose to honor God and spread the good word. And it doesn't have to be satire. It can be fantasy. It can be modern fantasy. It can be sci fi. It can be anything. think I'm going to finish drawing this hair, then call this stream to a close. This looks really nice. And after this, I definitely want to work on, what was it? His ribbon. Yeah, so that's another thing that I like about this design is that there's supposed to be a ribbon in his hair that sort of flaps around in the wind. And it's actually a nice. It's really nice because I do plan on having more designs, like more formal designs for Ao. Like I just made him to be a very handsome character. Like he even has a formal attire design that I'll likely draw sometime in the future, where it's like instead of just a regular red tie, he actually wears like a bow tie, like a little bow in his hair, and like his And instead of his bangs being up, he actually has them covering like one over his red eye. Like it's a very unique design. Yep, I'm almost done. This actually has been a fun project for me to work on. I have reached the 1 hour mark, and I do need to finish some stuff around the house, get ready for work, yada yada yada, all that good stuff. But it was nice sitting around and talking with you guys. This was a fun exercise. It was nice to go over the movies I've been watching and catching up with you guys. Definitely for my Friday stream, I might try to push for like 3 hours, maybe 320, just to have like a nice long stream under my belt. But definitely when I reach that 500 mark, that's when I have my special 5 hour long live stream. And I may either do that at night or I'll probably have to wake up early in order to do that. But it'll be fine. It'll be fun. It'll be very interesting. Anyway, it was nice having you all. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share even. When I reach 1,000 subscribers, I'll have a special Q&A live stream where you guys can ask me any sort of questions, anything you can think of, or anything you may want to know about me. And yeah, this has been Owoh's Corner, my own little corner of art. I'll see you guys in my next video or live stream. Bye.